So, the Axie Infinity case study, or how I FOMO'd $3,000 into Pokemon. I've spent more time in the last day or two on spreadsheets like this than I have inside the game client itself. And I wanted to show you guys how much I put in, the mistakes I made early on, the strategies I'm looking at, and then we'll keep you updated with how much I make, how much I lose, how much of my hair I pull out in frustration. So let's get into it a bit. So this is the spreadsheet that I've put together. I know it's a bit of a mess, but that's how my mind works sometimes, but it's helping me come up with a rough plan. Deposits so far are 1.07 ETH or 3,151 US dollars. That's how much we've put in to date. I can show you my account here. We have a couple of Axie NFTs and 2 eggs here. This is part of the first strategy we're going to try. So let's talk about the mistakes I made. So on the first night I installed the game, it's about 2 days ago, I spent about $900 on a team, and that's a team to play the game with, and they were farming SLP, which is this token here. My plan was to set up a scholarship, which, if you don't know, is you get someone else to play the game for you. This is somebody who either wants to make a bit of money on the side or somebody who plays games and figures they might as well get paid for it. If they don't have about $1,000 to get a team put together, they play as a scholar. So they play on my account with my team and we split the proceeds. That was my plan. And then I started to run the numbers. So let me pull up my SLP farming sheet here, make sure you can see it. Let me just pull that a wee bit bigger. Second. There we go. So these are some rough numbers for you. So if my first team costs $855, you give your scholar a percentage of that. In general, going by the market average, that's about 50%. And you have an SLP cap each day that you can hit. Better players with more expensive teams can make more. But again, I looked at the market, I looked at what other people were setting as a minimum, and you're looking about 700 SLP a week as probably your average getting from a scholar farming the account. Maybe more if they're good, but let's say 700. Assuming after their 50% cut, I will get 350 SLP on my account. And going at the current value, which is 6 cents, that is $42 overall, or $21 in my pocket as profit. That's before taxes and things. So for a week total every month, that's $84. That's still a lot better than a lot of traditional investments, don't get me wrong. And there are people who do this with dozens of teams. So times that by 20 or whatever, that's not half bad. And we're looking at about 40 weeks before the team breaks even. That's assuming SLP stays the same. Obviously, if you think SLP prices are going to rise, they have been a lot higher than 6 cents in the past. And some recent changes in the game, that could go a lot higher again. You could hold the SLP, sell it when the price is higher, if it goes higher, and then your earnings are obviously more. But this is going by the current market price. I then started to look at breeding, and I ran the numbers for that. So breeding is a little bit different. There's no requirement to play the game itself. In fact, I can show you the process here. If I breed this guy here, you just click on breed. I select someone to breed him with, which would be so this guy here. You pay SLP, so 1,500 here, and AXS, which is 1 here, and I would click Let's Breed. You get a little animation on the screen, and then that's it. They go into your account as eggs, which are NFTs themselves here. And in 5 days' time, these guys will hatch and become full-blown NFTs themselves, which I can then sell on. Now, I'm not going to get too much into it, but there are strategies to this. So the type of NFTs you have to breed are going to dictate the value of the NFTs you have to sell. So I have these three guys here, and one that's just hidden below the camera. And if I hover over, you can see all these in-game characteristics. These are actually the NFT's genetics. So when I breed them together, there is a percentage chance that the eggs it produces will have these genetics. Now, I've tried to choose my breeding set, which is 3 NFTs, including these guys here, to include traits that players currently want in the game. So these here are genes. We get some stats here, and we have these. These are the cards this NFT will get within the game. So I did a wee bit of research. I played the game a little tiny bit the first night, and these cards are generally considered pretty good. With an NFT like this, you can farm SLP, you can play against other players. So if I can breed more of these Axies, I should be able to sell them on the marketplace. So let's look at the numbers. In order to breed, I have a wee graphic down here, which isn't mine, I took it from someone else. I know it looks like a bit of a mess, but the important part is by getting 3 Axies here, here, and here, I can breed them twice to produce these 2. Now, there's no incest within Axie Infinity, so the siblings can't breed and they can't breed with their parents, but I can breed one of these with this 3rd Axie here to produce these 2, and it becomes a constant repeating pattern. So from these 3 Axies, I can continue to produce more NFTs. Now, it's not quite that simple because, like we saw before, in order to breed that pair, you do pay some tokens. Now, following this strategy, which is called the ABC strategy of breeding these 3 Axies together, you only breed each Axie 2 times. You could potentially breed a 3rd time, which is a wee calculation I've got worked out here. Haven't quite decided if that's going to be worthwhile yet. But if you look up here in the top right, every time you breed an Axie, the price increases. Right? So the first time you breed them, it's 300 SLP. The second time you breed them, it's 450, 750, 1200. It goes up from there, but there's no real point at the moment to breed it more than 2 or 3 times because you're spending more in tokens than the Axie itself is actually worth. Now, to make things a wee bit more complicated, the more you breed an Axie, the less the Axie's worth on the marketplace. So if I'm buying Axies as a breeding chain, so these 3 here, I wanted what's called virgin Axies, right? Because I want that breeding cost nice and low. So every time you breed the Axies, they are worth less. So the strategy is to follow this diagram here, which might not make a lot of sense. Don't worry too much about it. But it's taking my chain of 3 here, breeding them twice to produce 2 Axies, and then breeding them again twice with this set here to produce 2 Axies, and so on and so on and so on. So I'm producing infinite Axies, and I am hopefully going to be selling them for more than I'm currently making, than I'm spending on the breeding process itself. So we've got a couple of calculations here to get a rough idea of what that should be doing. So we've got to make some assumptions going by the current marketplace. So my current breeding chain, after 2 breeds, are selling for roughly $205. And you can see here, it's $366 if they haven't been bred before. So that's the difference. So you do lose that value. These are the costs. So the first time I breed the first set together, that's $96. Then it's $114. You breed them again, $96, $114, and you rinse and repeat. So we're making that $205 each time, but we're spending $96 and $114, $96, and you see the profit here. So $100, $82, $182. That means that every time we breed 2 Axies, or we breed a generation, as we call it, we're going to make $210. Now that's after a small marketplace fee. We spend 5% if we sell an Axie on the marketplace. That's our cost. It's 200. Can't read my own spreadsheet. Our cost is $210. Our revenue from selling them, 410, and after the 5%, we get $182. Now, you don't have to do anything for that. You can see my inventory here. Click, click, the breed starts. 5 days later, these guys are going to hatch and I will have extra Axies to sell. So assuming 5 days it takes, which is within the game, we should get our return from our initial investment up here after 26 days, which is pretty good as investments go, for sure. And after that, if these numbers stay the same, which obviously they will not, this is cryptocurrency, we should be on $36 a day. Now, that all said, there are some things we have to address. Just before I joined the game, so a couple of days ago, the developers made a few changes and they reduced the cost of SLP for breeding. Now, this is good for me because it's reduced these numbers here, meaning it costs me less to produce an NFT, which means my profit margin is better. Now, the downside here, of course, is they've reduced it for everyone. That means that the people who already have bigger breeding farms set up can now breed a heck of a lot more. And the people who haven't started breeding yet, maybe they haven't had enough capital, can get into it better. The upshot here is it's going to reduce, most likely reduce the cost of Axies on the marketplace. So I can pull these guys up, and it wasn't hard to find these accounts. I pulled up 5 accounts off the stream on the marketplace. We have this guy here, 149 Axies. You can see all these eggs that are going to be hatching and most likely going in the marketplace or into scholarship teams. This one here, we've got 95 Axies, pages and pages of eggs. 163 on this account. 392 Axies. That is a lot of breeding going on there. So these big breeding farms. So I'm obviously not the only one doing this, don't obviously expect to be. But most likely, if you reduce the cost of breeding, more people breed, and that's going to reduce the price of Axies on the marketplace. So that might change our strategy some. And because it's just come in, that won't really be reflected on the marketplace yet. So all these numbers we have here, this 205 and 366, this is based on what those Axies are currently selling for on the marketplace or have sold within the last kind of 24 hours. But our cost is still based on what the current cost is. So chances are that is going to go down, whereas that remains constant. So our profit margin here might get squeezed quite a bit. This might not happen if the game continues to grow and there's still a demand for the Axies. The price could increase, it could stay the same. Given the change, I don't expect it to. I do expect that price to come down, but we have to account for that. So here's what we might be doing. At the moment, assuming all things are the same, we have 2 eggs incubating every 5 days, and we're making $36.46. And that's going to pay off pretty quickly. We're going to assume that's going to change. And there's 2 things we have our eye on. The first is the price of SLP, which is the token you farm in the game. At the moment, it is 6 cents. If we look at the historic price back in July, it was up near 48 cents and it has fallen since then. Now, realistically, scholars who are playing the game for profit or people just playing the game for fun and to make a bit of money on the side, people who've invested in a team and just want to farm off SLP to cover their investments, they have no real reason to hold SLP. They're not going to breed with it. They're not going to use it. They're just looking to farm it. Once it unlocks, they're going to sell it for Ethereum, Bitcoin, or fiat if they just want to cash out, which is fine. I'm not going to even begin to guess whether that price goes up, down, or stays where it is. But what that price does will dictate what we do going forwards. So at the moment, with the SLP price of 6 cents and the market price of our Axies at $205, we looked at SLP farming and it's not really worth it, right? So we're making $84 every month and it's going to take almost a year to pay off a team. As an investment, that's still not half bad, but there's too much variation here for that kind of timeline. So if the marketplace does go down, it's going to hurt our breeding profit. It'll shave those margins right down. But it does mean we can pick up a team cheaper. So say now we can buy a team for $500. All of a sudden, we're paying off a team in just 23 weeks. Much better. Now, say these changes also drive the price of SLP up. Say for the sake of argument, it goes up to 10 cents. Now, for SLP farming, we're making $140 a month. They pay themselves off in 14 weeks. And because that price is now lower, we set up additional teams. So let's do team 2, team 3. Say it costs us the same to set it up. We give them 50%. We expect at least 700 a week. And these ones are just some easy calculations. And again, we're now making $420 every month. And each team is paying themselves off in 14 weeks. Obviously, in those 14 weeks, that price is going to change. This is not a prediction. This is what might happen. Now, on the other side of that, if the SLP price goes up, it increases our breeding costs. And if the Axie prices go down, say we're now paying that for an Axie, our breeding is now making $2 a day. So it makes a lot more sense to be farming SLP. Now, we don't want to be playing the game ourselves. So if that does happen, what we do is we get a scholar to play the game for us. So Axie Scholarship, I'll show you this real quick. They do this through Discords. I've seen it done on Twitter. There's a bunch of different places for it. But there is a subreddit for Axie Infinity scholarships. And you can see here, it's reasonably active 4 hours ago, 2 hours ago, 7 hours ago, 4 hours ago. And there's still quite a lot of demand for people who want to play the game but can't afford to buy themselves in yet. So these guys have 5 teams available. And there's different rules. You're expected to play every day and play the account. So it wouldn't be that hard to find someone to fill these roles. So that is what we're looking at. I obviously have no idea what's going to happen with the marketplace. It might well be that breeding works out well for us. If the SLP price doesn't move that much, in fact, we can just undo all this for the moment. If the SLP price doesn't move and the breeding price stays the same, then we're, $36 a day for doing nothing but clicking a few buttons every 5 days. Fantastic. If that's not the case, we'll change to breeding. We'll keep an eye on the marketplace over the next couple of days. We'll wait for those Axies to hatch, and then we're going to start selling and hopefully making some profit. Or if the marketplace has already changed over the next couple of days, we will start building the team and give them out as scholarships to farm SLP. So we'll have an update in a couple of days and we'll see what's happening.